Hey everyone, welcome to the Member Launch podcast. In this podcast, you'll learn how to grow your association membership. I'm your host Farhad Khan. I'm the CEO of Member Launch. And today I'm joined with two wonderful people, our co-host Bruce and our special guest John. So if you're joining us for the first time, this is a live recording of our podcast episode. And if you're like watching it later on as well, you can like send us any questions later too. We got some amazing questions from the audience that were submitted beforehand, so we will go through some of that. But if you have any question during the episode, please submit them on Zoom chat and we will get to them right away. And if you don't know about us or our company, so I'm from Member Launch, and Member Launch is a member engagement platform for associations that can take your membership marketing on autopilot. And we have been known to double your member engagement with AI, and it works. We have data to back it up. So if you're looking for a member engagement platform, look us up. With that, we will get started. Over to you, Bruce, if you want to tell us a bit about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Farhad. I am Bruce Rosenthal. I have worked for associations for many years, in the last 15 years or so, helping organizations with their corporate sponsorship programs, and the last 8 years as a consultant, helping organizations ramp up their sponsorship programs to increase revenue and member value. And I'll be publishing a book, Mastering Association Corporate Sponsorships, next month. John, over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Farhad. Yeah, my name is Jonathan Milne. For the last 5-6 years, I was what's called a fractional CMO. But more recently, I've joined the team over at DemandSpring, a B2B market agency, headquartered between Ottawa and Boston, and I lead up their VP of AI services. So what that really means is I'm trying to help our clients and also help our internal team figure out how to use AI and kind of be creating AI-assisted processes, products, and services as we help people generate more revenue for their organizations.
All right. And John, I guess you have a long background in marketing. Do you want to tell us a bit about that as well?
Sure. I started off very early in my career as a co-op student. What I enjoyed about through co-op is I did marketing, sales, product management. And so I kind of got to understand the whole part of go-to-market. And then from there, I got into security space. I got into digital marketing for dashboarding and reporting solutions. Then I got into helping startups do this. Then I got into VC-funded companies. Then I broke out into my own, and then now I'm back into helping basically teams take AI into their products and services. So it's almost full circle.
Got it. Yeah. And by the way, John and I, we have known each other for quite some time, I think like decades now, right? So we are both located in Ottawa. So yeah, so our paths cross pretty often. Now, so John, like I always like to start with a beginner's mind when like coming to our podcast and then like looking at topics like this. So AI in a marketing world, right? And associations some teams are pretty advanced, some teams are pretty laid back, and then it's a mixed bag. But with AI, I think a lot of things has to shift. We do not have a choice right now. So how should like membership and marketing teams like think their work and their processes moving forward now that like AI is becoming mainstream?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that simple question, but we were just talking before we launched live. We are in a phase now that you can't ignore that we are in an AI world, right? So I think you'll see it. It's been launched live in Google. It's been launched live in Microsoft solutions, right? It's been turned on the features. You go to Google search now, you see AI overviews. You hear basically in the news the word AI every day. So I think we can agree we're at a stage. And if you kind of think back in history, we had stuff like this around the internet. We had stuff around this for mobile devices. It's just another platform shift that's happening. So I think we all have to agree that AI is here. And those who ignore it are going to lose out on the early advances of it, right? And so similar to like mobile and internet, and even go back even further in time, electricity, you name it, any transformational technology or shift in society, the ones who are early adopters tend to also kind of reap some of the early adopter rewards. So I think the first thing, no matter what industry you are, what role you're in, I think you have to start to build two things in your kind of thinking these days. You got to be more curious in life and build a growth mindset. So I think people have to realize AI is not perfect. We're in a hype cycle. I think we're near the top of one of the hype cycles for this version. The other thing, if you think about AI technology, this is the third wave of technology. It's had two winters previous to this. So it goes back to almost the 60s with the first wave of AI technology. So it's not something as new as some people think. But we're definitely, the adoption rate and the accessibility of this AI cycle is much different than any other ones. And so what I mean by that too is that you don't have to be very technical to get a lot of good stuff out of this. Right. It's not like, I think back Fahad, when you first built your first apps and stuff like that, right? You had to write apps for lots of different platforms. You had to pick up new technologies. You had to learn a lot to deploy a mobile app when the platforms first came out. Today, AI, a simple prompt gets you a lot of magic, right? And so the question is, are you learning how to prompt better?
Got it.
John, you're providing excellent guidance for associations, though associations I've heard are somewhat siloed at times. So whether they have 10 staff or 100 staff, so whether we're talking about guidelines or how to use or how to reach the multitudes of different audiences of members and consumers and sponsors, who's in charge? If you've got, again, 10 staff, 100 staff, who's in charge of implementing all these good ideas you're talking about?
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. So we do see in the studies right now that there's kind of two things are happening. You see employee experimentation, and you might also see a little bit of corporate down pressure, right? And you'll see both, and both are very natural depending on the organization, their risk tolerance, who's leading the charge is one thing. Second of all, if you think about certain organizations, if you're tech led, it tends to be tech led in the team, right? The product management team, the developers, they're bringing tools, they're trying to create more customizations. For associations or smaller businesses, it actually tends to be the marketing team. And the marketing team or the sales team actually has to come in and try to work with the other executive levels to get buy-in. And so if you think about any digital transformation you've ever done, whether or not it's a new website transformation, ERP solution, purchasing Member Lounge, and trying to deploy it across the teams, you definitely need a champion. The second thing that, if you want to talk about real tactical, how do I get this going in my organization? You do need some type of documentation that allows people to understand when and where and how we can use the technology. It is very clear, you have to understand your policy statements, your security statements, and all that stuff. But the good news is, like, if you go and look at your Microsoft license or you go to your Google license, they'll turn it on for you. So that's the easy part. So turning it on now is not a technology barrier. There's an easy on-ramp, and it's free for a lot of these tools, right? So like Google has made it recently that said Gemini is free now. So our own company, we're about to pay for it, about to upgrade it. And literally within 24 hours, our decision of like getting the budget approval and going forward, Google's like, yep, it's free. So that barrier of cost has gone away, right? So the barrier of cost has gone away. The accessibility is there. You definitely need to make sure you give your employees some guidance around what data I'm allowed to use, especially if I think about associations, PEI. I want to think about, am I allowed to, use my membership data? Probably not. Am I going to, use certain data sets? Probably not. But you can definitely start to think about where you can use it. All our public-facing documents, all our stuff that we put on our website, our ads, our social media channels, that's all public-facing data anyways. So how can we not start using AI to augment it, assist us, make variations of it, get better with the skills to develop that content? So there's definitely a very obvious new on-ramp that did not exist a year ago.
Yeah, and we just did a webinar on this topic, and then like one thing that we were advising everyone is that like you have to start by individual adoption across the team, particularly among the leaders. So the tech people, the marketing, sales, they may be the champions because they need it right now to amplify their skills. But the leaders do the same, like should do the same. Like for example, like I use ChatGPT, like a paid version of it, like every day for brainstorming, bouncing ideas for strategies, thoughts and things like that, right? So just that like bouncing ideas is like very powerful. Plus document preparation, things like that. So I think like one thing I had in mind is that like there has to be individual adoption like very, very fast among leaders and the champions who are curious about it as quickly as possible. And then they have to share this among themselves, right? That, you know what, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing? So I think, Bruce, you had a similar question on this topic, that do we have to build an AI community within the company first? So maybe like there's that. But John, I'll actually ask you a different question. So for tech companies and many other companies who are like less regulated, we have like more freedom to do things, and we have like more liberty on a number of things. An association often exists to deliver best possible value for the membership, and they operate like a government, where a government has to like deliver value for the citizens, right? So meaning like they're a bit risk averse, they want to like take things slow and like better be safe than sorry. So how would you like include AI like from that point of view?
Yeah, so I work with I do a 12-week AI first mindset training program. And believe it or not, my early adopters are actually financial services, healthcare, and those types of regulated organizations, right? Large, extremely strict rules, and they've decided to lean in, right? And where the leaning in is actually coming from is the top down. So the executive team members and the kind of the next layer down of those teams have recognized there is an absolute need to get the discussions, the culture changes, and all that stuff happening. So I don't think saying, I'm in this certain industry or I'm in this certain type of niche, I can avoid this. I think that discussion has to go away, right? Two, you're using the right words. I often get asked the question like what technology I should use. And it's not a technology challenge, right? It's not the tools. You're better to figure out what is the task you're trying to solve and start to experiment using AI to help solve the task, right? I think we got to get out of the tool and hoping this magical tool is going to do everything perfectly. I think we got to go into the task. I can identify a task. I put quite a good constraint on the task. I have a well-defined objective for the task. And the better we get at task definitions, the easier it is to prompt and then allow us to start to say, okay, how do I use AI to help me assist me on that task? So that's kind of there. You also said a couple of things that I love picking up on is, how do we get this change? And change is actually sometimes quite simple when you think about it, just the way we approach things. So one obvious example I use, and I just gave this in a meeting actually 2 hours ago. We did another conversation, and I said, every team meeting you have on your agenda from now on, just like you do, you have an update on data, you have an update on teams, you have an update on financials. You now have a new line item called AI. And in that AI line, all I want to do is give every time we have let's say it's a weekly team, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever your cadence is, I'm going to set aside 10, 15 minutes, whatever you can, to assign somebody to showcase something they've worked on. Here's a new tool I've met. Here's a new prompt I tried. Here's the output of my latest, the prompt I used, right? I read this thing about OpenAI. I saw this new feature launched in Microsoft. You name it. It doesn't have to be very structured, but the idea now is that we're bringing this important new technology, this important new change of how we need to think and work to a regular cadence. And by talking about it regularly, over and over and over, the barriers of adoption get down and down and down until the point where everyone on the team is there, right? So there's a fun saying that I often hear saying, AI is not going to take my job. People who use AI will. And I'm a strong believer in that statement, right? So we're constantly worried about, AI is going to take all these jobs. And I go back to history again. Take when we said, in the financial services industry when the ATMs came along, right? How we're going to lose all these banks, we're going to lose all these jobs and all that stuff. I don't know about you, but there's more locations of banks, even in a digital world today, there's more locations of banks today than there was 10, 15 years ago when ATMs came in. There's more people employed at banks today than 10, 15 years ago when ATMs came in. What happened was the value of the services the organization can bring has changed. So the key thing about when you think about marketing and members and associations and all this stuff is that I hear too much about replacement and trying to use AI to do something I to do today. No doubt you're going to use AI to help you with some of the stuff you do today, right? That's called efficiency gains. What I don't hear enough of, and the report's not writing about, and especially for marketers and salespeople, is it's very clear to me there's not enough people doing research on marketing and sales impacts because I'm not looking for efficiency. I'm looking for effectiveness. I'm going to just say that just very slowly again, because it takes a while for people to understand. I'm not looking for efficiency. So every report says hours saved, dollars saved, jobs replaced. That's the fodder in the research. It's wrong for marketers and sales. I'll go out and be on a bold statement here. Effectiveness is where it happens. So I'll take a very simple use case. I can use AI to help rewrite content. Content's a very common thing. Blogging, articles, you name it. Okay, great. So I replaced my article writing. Not really. What you're going to do with AI when you think about it and become a good practitioner is I'm going to take my blog writing to the next level. I'm going to take that blog and rewrite it for different audiences. I'm going to take that blog article and repurpose it for social media. I'm going to take that blog article and now turn it into a video. I'm going to take that blogger, right? In the past, I couldn't do that because I'd be under the gun to do a blog article. I'd be lucky if I can do, I'm not a very fast writer. Be lucky if I could do one a day, maybe one every 2 days, right? I've never was a journal student. So, but with AI, I can write that blog article. I can dissect it onto social. I can republish it. I can reform it. I can repost it on different channels, right? I can do so much more with that. I could do a different variation of it for LinkedIn, right? I can do so much more. That's effectiveness. And so anybody I know who's an actual practitioner are talking about effective techniques with AI, not efficiency. I'm not saying you're not going to have to do some efficiency steps. I just know it's very clear to me who I know who's actually good at AI and has been in it for a while. The things they talk about is very different.
Got it. Yeah. John, so on that note, I think like when we talk about effectiveness, one key thing we have to look at are our audience needs, and then how do we deliver the right message to the right people at the right time, right? So that's when marketing and sales really shines.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on making that connection happen?
Okay, this is one of my favorites. So not only can you use AI to act as and do role playing to develop content, you can also use it to do an evaluation of your content. So what I mean by that is it's super powerful now to build custom GPTs or a little persona profile maker that reviews things. So what I love now is that when I create content and I'm writing for a specific audience, so let's say I'm writing for my association helps HR managers for healthcare. Let's do 2 layers there. I can do 2 things. I could write a persona GPT that helps that acts as the HR person. I could write one just for the healthcare, or I can bring them both together. But this is what happens. Every time I write a piece of content, I call this up and say, hey, I give it a name. I'll call it Wendy. Hey, Wendy, can you please review this blog and give me your insights of things you like and don't like of this blog article? And instantly now, for the very first time, if you've ever been in a marketing team in a large brand, Nike, Facebook, you've had budgets where you get to go to market and have things tested. You can do studies, all this stuff. I've been working primarily in the startup space. We're well funded, but we don't have those types of dollars. Now, in my first time in my career, I can role play, I can do studies, I can do all kinds of ways to review my content from different perspectives to ensure that what I write resonates. If this does not get people excited, I don't know what does, because we're going to see a shift of not only is my messaging, my writing is going to be more towards the person, that personalization. AI is also going to help us with contextualization. So I know that Wendy, who is brand new in her role in HR at a health services for something else. That persona is very different than, John, who's been in the role for 20 years and has been doing the exact same role for 20 years. The language and what's going to shift John's thinking versus Wendy is very different. So AI is going to really allow us to get into a much more empathetic way to talk and resonate and pull out something and tell our story much better, right? And so this is all about effectiveness now, right? All we just said, these are effective new techniques to layer in. So it's not about me now doing 15 emails because I can do efficiency and have AI spew out 15 emails. What I want to do is do 15 emails of effectiveness, thinking about new data sources, new ways to talk to you, new ways to engage, right? And so what you're also going to find is that one of the things that associations are very powerful in is that they create communities and they create a source of knowledge transfer. if we think about that idea, community creation and knowledge transfer, what I hope to see with AI is how do I get that to a much more deeper level? How do I create more sub-segments to have conversations at a much deeper level? How do I bring a more curated approach to content that the AIs can't do because they're still looking very broad-based, right? There are so many little things we're going to see to start to layer in, right? I expect this kind of functionality in the member lodge. I'm sure you have some already today, but that idea of curation and smaller community groups and chatting and being connected is going to be where I expect us humans are going to want from brands and vendors and things moving forward.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more, John. And you might
Yeah.
have the same answer, and even if you repeat it, that's fine. So
Yeah.
12, 15 years ago, associations were sole source. Nobody had access to that audience. Nobody had access to that body of knowledge.
Yep.
So the way you've described AI and using it for goals and objectives, not just as a tactic, all those ways of curating, market research, all that, members can do that, consumers can do that, sponsors can do that. How
Absolutely.
does the association maintain its competitive edge in that competitive environment as the trusted resource when anybody can do what you just described so well?
Yeah, so think about this. I spend less time on the lower end curation connection. So the data already shows, for example, when you get a lead, like a traditional sales lead from now ChatGPT or Perplexity, you're finding that they're buying at a higher rate than in the past. So it's very clear what's happening is I've done more research or I've trusted AI to do more research. That's a double-edged sword, right? But I have been able to get a little bit more deeper on the topic than I was before I made a decision. So what's fascinating now is if you think about memberships and how much time you do on onboarding and ramping somebody up, giving them backgrounds. Maybe I'm new to the forestry industry, right? So you have all this stuff I can research and now do and understand about forestry before I join in. So the lot of the time that this on-ramp we have, we can now take our members from that on-ramp to straight up to success, right? So the time and the time to value should be much more dropped because I can do a lot more, right? And so I expect members then to do more curation, get into higher level discussions, start to spend time on collecting new data sources that AI can't replace, start to engage members on topics around policy and spend more time on working with government stakeholders on doing than all this other stuff we've done that's kept us very administrative busy. So I really would love to see our thinking of saying, I have a marketing team, and yes, we've done webinars, and yes, we've done that. You're still going to do some of that stuff. But now I can spend more time curating our messaging and talking to the government stakeholders who are just passed Bill XYZ. We can have all our teams analyze it with AI, ask questions, come back with a stronger voice from our group, right? Organize. There's so much more we can do, right? And so again, I'm going to sound like a little bit of a repetitive, but that's getting more effectiveness. So the lens there, Bruce, I'm trying to really articulate is don't think about AI in my today's world. Like I as a marketer, I like to ask the question: does any marketing person's here's list ever get shorter? Right? And as soon as I give you more budget or more team members, does your list get shorter? With AI, I've effectively given you more budget and more resources. So the question now is, what are you going to do with them? And so of course, when you first get these resources, I need you to shore up my current processes. I need you to think about what we do today. I want to make sure we still have a great presence on social media. Great. We're going to do all that. But once I start to get past that first layer of efficiency building, I want us to start saying, now that I've got this tasks done, a little bit of automation, a little bit of support, a little bit of assistance, right? So I use the word sometimes like AI stands for assistance, average or augmented for different use cases, because you can start to understand where AI actually is useful for us. It's not as artificial as we think yet. I get that done. I can now do so much more with my team, right? So I was just coaching somebody earlier this morning, a manager that's talking about how do I start to change the way I think my team is going to look this year versus next year and the following year, right? And Farhad, you might remember I used to write and talk about the T-shaped marketer, right? So the T-shape says, here are the fundamental skills every marketer has to be, and here's your specialization, right? And it used to be kind of a pretty thin T and a pretty thin line, right? Because most marketers were very good at one, maybe two marketing channels. with AI, I think you're going to become kind of a square block, right? You're going to be able to go wider on the T because you're going to be able to do more data analysis. You're going to be able to do more structured of writing. Your skill set's going to be much broader. And then because you've got AI, I can get better at marketing for social. I can do better at ads. I can do better at SEO. I can do better, right? So you're naturally going to become squares. And so what's naturally going to happen is you look at your team members, we're very functional based. Right. This is a very interesting idea. And this is where kind of we're going to get a massive improvement. If you go back to associations in particular are usually very strongly mission driven. There's a reason why they're there. Right. But then as soon as they start to deal with the organization, I got to talk to John for this thing, Farhad for that thing. Bruce is responsible for this. There's no connectivity. There's no one voice. There's no one representation. With AI, you're going to find that our roles are going to become more wide. We're going to do more, and we're going to go more deeply. So instead of hiring, new team members, I'm going to say, hey, I've never done ads before. I'm going to start to say, I'm going to use AI, and I'm going to challenge Farhad to start adding ads into our marketing. We're not going to go outside. We're going to do it internally because I got AI to supplement and augment my team, and I'm going to do more stuff. So you're going to start to see this kind of, and not say collapse, but roles and responsibilities are going to be around the objectives and missions and the campaigns, and not about the functional roles as we start to see where AI starts to impact us internally.
Got it. Yeah. John, I want to kind of go deeper into something you mentioned earlier, custom GPTs and then personas within GPTs, because I some of us who are heavily using AI, I think we are deep into that. I have custom GPTs where I have a virtual CTO to replace, our current CTO's role. I created a persona for the CTO, I created a persona for the CMO, I created a persona for the sales, VP of sales, right? And then I bounce ideas with it every single day. And same question, I post it here, I get a tech answer from the tech GPT, I get a sales answer from the sales GPT, I get a marketing answer from the marketing GPT, right? So I think what you're saying is that in terms of marketing and communication, associations often actually have to talk to many different stakeholders. So 1 will be their members, 2 their staff, 3 their board, 4 maybe the sponsors, 5 the partners, right? Yeah. So I think if we had the same message to kind of share to all of them, how do we personalize? How much time would it take us if we just created personas, custom GPT personas for each one of them, and gave it all the same prompt? The different personas will return with a message that is personalized for that particular audience. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
So let's just do a quick level set on tech terminology. Because I do the training, I find the AI space has decided to make up a lot of fancy terms for very simple concepts. So first of all, let's talk about custom GPTs and explain that in Google, they call them gems, right? Copilot, now they're called agents. And so GPTs, agents, and gems those are the kind of the 3 biggest providers. All those terms are fairly interchangeable. And all that really means is that I've created a prompt. So a prompt is a bunch of words that describe something. In this case, my prompt might be say, act as a CEO of a partner, right? Blah, blah, blah. So I have a role, I have some stuff. So first of all, let's talk about what that is. So that's what a GPT is for everybody that's listening. I want to make sure we're there, right? Second is, this is a very fun use case to talk about because we often think about it for content writing, output, and all that stuff. One thing I'm very passionate around it is this idea of using it as a coaching. Right. So to your point, Farhad, as soon as you started talking about those different roles, I go back to when we first met. Farhad and I met at a startup incubator program, and I would hire coaches to coach people like Farhad. So I got him a marketing coach. I got him a sales coach. We had a financial services coach, right? What's fascinating is I can now create those types of coaches, those roles, those personas inside of a GPT. So now for the very first time, I can use that. So a simple example that I like to do for junior marketers is if you're about to present something to your manager, create a GPT about your manager and then say, I'm about to present this to Farhad, my CEO. What questions and what kind of things could I expect before I go into my meeting? And here's my slides, right? I now have some questions to prepare. So I've never, done a presentation. If you've ever gone to a board, for example, board meeting very first time, that's a very nerve-wracking, experience. Imagine in role play. And by the way, role playing is actually being built into some of the tools. So if you go into Microsoft and go to PowerPoint, they have a Copilot now that actually has you role play, and you can present your presentation to Copilot for feedback. And you can turn on gestures or not as well. So like, we're not just like, this is not theoretical. The big tech companies are realizing that the role playing personas is useful for us to get better effectiveness, right? Effectiveness. These custom GPs are effective. So yeah, absolutely. So when we think about building them, if you've never done this and it sounds very complicated, build a very simple GPT, very simple role, very simple job description, very simple ICP. A lot of us in marketing have ICPs or personas, usually in a PowerPoint presentation, right? Take those and use that as your first basis, right? That'll get you to what I call level 1. I have a whole prompting technique to kind of get to level 3, but level 1 for a lot of people is good enough, right? It's more than you've ever had. So if I had that idea of role playing, different personas, different members, different people, as you send them content, you build ad sets, you build landing pages, you do decks, you think about speaker recruitment, you think about newsletter, any task you have, you're like, okay, role play. How would they react to this? What else would they like to see? What more information could I provide? Is there a terminology I'm using that would make it resonate better with them? Right? All those things now take you more time, but taking the time to do things more deeply with your audiences is going to separate you and the AI. Right? Because I can go to AI and say, give me a report on all this stuff, and it's going to give me a 30-page report. It doesn't understand the context, doesn't have the nuances, doesn't have my 15 years of experience, doesn't have me questioning it, doesn't have me challenging it, doesn't have me like, there's a list and list and list, right? Deep research, amazing technology. But to kind of Bruce's earlier standpoint, what we're going to see is this phenomenon. I like to describe it as we're all Google doctors right now. How many of us have gone to a doctor in the last 10 years and we come up saying, hey, doc.
No, of course not.
I think I need this, and this, right? So you can kind of see where this is going to go for memberships and stuff like that, right? They're going to do a little bit more Googling stuff, which means that we have to be also up our game. We're going to have that knowledge better, right? We're going to have to train our staff to be not just a junior level understanding the policies and the procedures and the industry trends, if I'm doing an industry like association, right? So there's going to be some expectations on both sides that we're going to have to see. So I'm already seeing some good GPTs being built around like support calls, training. I've seen it on salespeople doing like role playing. I've seen it on like discovery call making. You think about it, you can keep creating as many of these as possible, right? Which makes training, and think about your budgets. How many of you have training budgets for sales, marketing, pitching, presenting? I don't know about you, but most my teams I work with have fairly small, limited budgets. Guess what? You now have access to more, right?
It sounds like associations could also have a role, whoever their members are, whether they are doctors or bricklayers or teachers, in helping each of their members learn how to use GPT or use AI in their businesses. Because if members don't get it from the association, they're going to get it somewhere else.
You're absolutely right. I call that the meta thinking, right? We're doing this, so should you. So I actually have an HR tech client. And I was gathering some data, and I realized I'm going to write a blog article for them because I have this data set that talks about how people are using AI. So it's almost like keyword research for Google. We're now starting to get research data around how people are using AI. And so to your point, Bruce, is like I did this little fun blog article about what are the top 10 use cases HR people are using AI for, right? And of course they're sharing that in their newsletter, and they're inspiring people, because what's also unique about that data, and again, think about the meta of this. It's data that's very hard for the AI tools to know about because it's new. It's not a lot of stuff written about, right? So the AI will give you some superficial high-level stuff. You can take some data, add your knowledge onto it, and create a new data set that will help AI in its next version of data to help people understand it. But you're now at the start of it. So you're getting ahead of everybody, right? So you're totally right, Bruce. I could also think about it as if I'm a doctors association And if you really want to kind of get really advanced, imagine creating a little chat bot that says, here's all the information we know about this new legislation or this new rule or this new practice. And then what I do is I share this bot with everybody and start asking questions. And then there's two things that happen. Not only can I use this to create knowledge within my members and give them a chance to learn more, right? Because the hospitals don't have time to do this, right? The fact that we as associations exist to pull data together, that's one of our uniqueness. So I can do all this stuff. What I can also do is look at the questions people asked, turn those questions into a webinar, into a new data source, and update, right? I keep thinking in my mind as an AI person, what new data sources can I find, create, curate, leverage? Because those new micro data sets is where all the value is going to be created, because all the stuff published on the web is the web. You as members, surveys, insights, interviews, trends, meetings with your partners and officials, all of that is actually unique data. That's where you're going to shine. You're going to shine on how to take that unique data and share it with everybody, not the stuff I can find on Google.
John, you mentioned something very interesting, because so the current chat GPTs of the world, they actually have data of the past, maybe 1 year behind or maybe 2 years behind often, right? And the new content that is being created, they are not soaking it in fast enough. So, and in the association world, there's a lot of content being created in the association's resource libraries. They have ongoing webinars with experts, research papers, and there's so much content in their library in there. Plus organic discussions between team members. Hey, I ran into this problem. Okay, what do you think? Someone replying, say, oh, you know what? I did this before. This is what happened. So there's this massive data that we have within an association community. I think one key thing that I'm finding is that anyone who does not have a online community where members get together, they're losing out on their value proposition already. So number one, if you do not have an online place where members can get together, I think you're losing out, because you're not capturing that value today, and tomorrow you will not have the data to kind of lean on. If you build the data content library and member discussions today, you'll have the data to lean on tomorrow, right? So John, given that we have the data in-house, right? So how do we leverage that to deliver better value to members?
Yeah, so it goes back to core marketing, right? So that's a unique data set. What do you want to use it for? Do you want to use it for a webinar, a website, an update, a white paper, an ebook, right? So unique data set is super interesting. I'll give you a kind of an interesting take. I went to this conference and it was fascinating to me. So I went to this conference and it was an AI conference, and every main stage of the conference was recorded. And the app allowed you to do two things. So just like this call is going to be recorded, and there's going to be AI notes and all that stuff. So they did that at the event level. And then at the app level, they took everything that is in that whole conference, and you can now do a summarization of everything on top of everything. So here's my first take, though, is which sessions then did I go to? I didn't spend any of my sessions going to a main stage session, because all of them were recorded and AI'd. Right? What I did do is go to all the sessions that were Q&A, follow-ups, peer groups, and everything else, right? Because I can now get access to that data very easily. What I can't get access to is these conversations, interpretations, the right questions to ask, right? You have to remind yourself, AI is just like the library. Anybody can go to the library, and it's full of books. Do you know which books to go for? Do you know what books you want to summarize? Do you know if you take this book, you might want that book, right? That's why there's librarians to help guide us, right? Sometimes we have to be the librarian. Sometimes we have to ask the librarian for help. It's that same idea. There's lots of knowledge out there. How are you going to bring it, distill it, share it? If I think about kind of to your point, Farhad, if I'm new to something, I'm going to have a different journey for you now, right? We tend to treat community members too much like they're all the same. So membership's kind of like, we might have different membership levels based on, size employees. Now I want us to think about, again, go back to personas and ICPs. We have to get a lot better at contextualizing those ICPs and personas. So we've been very drilled the last 15 years to talk about job title, industry, especially demographic or firmographic data to segment our audience. We're going to go quickly away from that. We're going to still use some of it, but we're going to go quickly away from it. Are you new to this role? Have you done sales and marketing? You know, someone who done sales and marketing has a lot more different interests and discussions than someone who's only done product management, right? Like I think we're going to be able to contextualize the information sharing and the support mechanisms with AI to do stuff a lot more interesting. So I can see in like if I think about member lounge and you think about how many teams there are, like how many groups and discussions there are, my prediction is actually with AI, you're going to create many more of them, not less. Because I'm going to go specifically to these smaller niche areas to get more information. Just like AI models are going to become more and more niche, more specialized. I have the sneaky suspicion we're going to do the exact same thing in communities. I don't want to have a generic marketing conversation anymore.
Yeah.
I want to talk about marketing for AI, for content in associations. Because, you know, that's where I want to get down into. Like, I don't need a generic, I can go to ChatGPT and talk about it at the high level, right? So I think you're going to see much more specialization and going more deeply. And that scares people because they're like, well, John, I'm not good at that. But no one is. With AI, and a growth mindset and a curiosity mindset, you can build those skill sets and become that champion at work. And that's your new job. That's your new role, right? That's your new value to your organization. And that to me inspires people like me. Like I get excited about that stuff. I have a propensity to love to learn and try new things, right? I hope that's a shared common value with most people is going to be that growth mindset, right? Let's keep learning. Let's keep trying. Let's keep experimenting.
I agree, John. We don't want the generic, but it also, and I don't know if there should be a guideline or a warning in here before everybody goes off at the end of this hour and starts implementing all the good stuff you're talking about. So I've talked to a couple of folks that have been on the review panels for education session proposals for conferences.
Okay.
And they said, wow, we have two proposals. They look real similar. It looks like each person went in to AI and said,
Yep.
come up with a title and 4 learning objectives for members of the XYZ Association, period. And they came up. So that's obviously the opposite end of customized. This is generic white bread for everybody. How do we avoid that happening, whether it's training for our staff or for our members, so they don't end up all saying the same thing?
So I love this example because my kid's going through the same thing applying to universities, right? We know you can write applies, you know, jobs stuff and all that stuff. So I think it's going to become very natural that, again, let's not use AI and try to replace our existing process. Let's realize AI has forced us to change that process. So when you submit, one of the things I think you're going to have to end up doing, unfortunately, is you're going to interview people to see how much they really know, right? And there's going to be challenges of interviewing people, right? Right now, there's a good chance I could put up a fake AI avatar today to see that John is like, right? So there's going to be some trust issue for sure and some challenges. But again, I think we have to start to realize that AI is allowing all of us to augment to average information. So for example, if I'm not very good at writing a presentation proposal, I can go to ChatGPT and it will write me something a lot better than the average Joe. It's a very smart technology, right? So the challenge is, okay, now that I can assume everybody has done this, how am I going to filter through? But I also use the opposite. So here's the opposite I can do. And this is the same thing we talk about with teachers. Teachers all blame kids to cheat and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, aren't you using it for grading? Aren't you using it for review and homework? Aren't you doing it to create new questions and tests? Aren't you using it for blah, 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 right? And they'll go, oh, yeah. Or, oh, maybe I should, right? So the same thing, Bruce, when I have the applications in, I can use the AI now to look at your LinkedIn profile. I can use the AI to review if you have any YouTube stuff. I can use AI to see if you are a person of good standing, right? I can use AI to see if you're talked about in certain groups. I can do a lot more background information checking than I ever could before, right? So there's this fun, interesting in equilibrium today that AI has enabled those early adopters I talked about. Early adopters are finding how to get a little extra edge right now, right? And then the question is, do other people catch up and change their processes to change it? And then, okay, you create these new processes. Then what do I do to kind of do the next step, right? So I feel like that's every 6 months we're in that space right now, right? And some of the techniques that we're going to use and discuss today are only going to be helpful for maybe 6, 9, 12 months. And then AI is going to circumvent or push away that value further down, and we got to figure out how to get even more value. So I think that's the one thing that scares a lot of people is that, if you think about SEO or ads, we're pretty comfortable with, the space of SEO and understanding how it works and ads and formats and all that stuff. We're just going through a very uncomfortable phase again, right? And so, that's just the natural environment we're going to be in, I think, for a very long time as AI keeps changing this. But I do, and I think, if I had kind of want to reach out to me, when we talked about the title for the session, communities over content, it's something I actually talk to a lot of people when I talk about marketing and budgets and stuff like that. It's very clear to me, content, AI-enabled video, AI avatars, AI doing phone calls, all this stuff. We're going to go through a massive boom of it for the next, pick a window, 9 months, 18 months, maybe some older industries and smaller niches, 2 years. But it's very clear, like the people are in it. I'm getting fake robocalls. I'm getting fake landing pages. I'm getting a lot of fake content. It's not fake in a negative sense, but they're doing a really fast use of AI to digitize human connections. I think we humans will naturally going to find ourselves not trusting the digital world as much in a certain period of time. So for example, there'll be a technology most likely to say there's a watermark trying to prove that this is actually John and not an AI. Right? We're going to have some type of way to prove to people this is true. So I think we're going to go there. But the reverse of this is going to be, and what I'm trying to go to in a long-winded way, is community connectedness is a very human social thing, right? We're going to find that associations and those who are especially driven around members are going to be on the hook to drive more smaller, intimate human connectivity things. I just feel like that's where more of this is going to get to.
Yeah, and I guess like if there's like more and more like content, AI generated content like out there in the internet, like the higher the value of like real human to human connection, I guess, right? And the value will just like go up from here. So John, I have like 2 very important questions for you, and I want to make sure we have time for that. So number one, in our research, it like working on member launch and everything. So I found that like I tried to find, look, what are the biggest sources of data that I have that I can use from on the membership in order to like personalize content for the membership overall. So I found like 2 sources are like, number one, members interacting on our platform. So clicking, like watching videos, watching trainings, discussing, that's like one source. But the bigger source of data is in the emails. So our platform will send out like hundreds of thousands of emails, like to all the members, like automated or maybe like newsletters like that, right? When the emails go out, some people are opening, some people are not. That email open rate, behavior, interaction with the email has like it's like a huge gold mine, which we do not have visibility into right now. Do you have any thoughts, any tool or anything that you have used that can actually mine that data and like understand like better behavioral insights on members?
So when it comes to data, and this is another fun topic. So a couple things real quick to remember about data and AI. So a lot of people, I come from business intelligence space, Cognos and Clipfolio and reporting tools, and you spend your entire time talking about architecture, cleaning up data, segmented and all that stuff, right? There used to be a lot. With AI, a lot of that is an old way of thinking, especially for smaller teams. 2 is, if you look at where you're going with model creation, you'll notice the data sets are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because what they're starting to realize is that a smaller data set with less outliers, I can do more with than I can with a bigger data set. So you'll notice that the model training around coding and language, they're getting smaller and smaller. Okay, so there's a few things to remember. Second is you have more data than you realize because you can dump a whole bunch of files, right? So you can dump your files of your email. If they're clicking to your website, you dump your website files and you start to ask questions in between it, right? You've got data maybe in your conversations happen inside of your member lounge, right? And your emails, and I'd ask a simple question saying, of all the discussions that happened in the last 30 days in Member Lounge, did I pick the right articles to share in my email? They're talking about stuff, right? Is all the hot topics in here being displayed and pushed out here, right? So the thing you start to think about your data is, you went to a very natural place of you're looking at open rates, click rates, and all those things that we are very structured on in our thinking. My mind is, with new data sets, new areas, what new questions can I bring together? I don't have to worry about cleaning up the data. I don't have to worry about structuring the data. I just pump it into AI and I start asking them very interesting stuff. And you can use words like correlation. You can use like causation. You can ask about timeline series data. You can start to learn all these terminologies that they teach you in data science are ways to guide the AI to look and analyze the data in a very interesting way, right? These are stuff you never were able to do before, right? I also know you may be on social media, more data, or you're following a certain Reddit group, more data. All I'm saying is that you need to start pulling together these micro data sets together and stitch them in new ways for performance. The other thing I'll just leave you with is we often do a lot of stuff, and I'll go back to emails as an example. We spend a lot of time trying to specialize on A/B testing, this line versus this line. What I want you to start to think about is segment your groups. You can do old segmentations, industry, size, member type. That's great. Also try to do stuff like intent. People have never opened my email in 6 months versus people who open every email. If I've got a group who is always engaged with my content, put them in a separate category, they're going to consume more. If I got people who've never done it, I might write in a very aggressive hook with a real strong call to action with a very short, to the point newsletter. Because for them, they don't want to go through. They're not engaged. So I need to change the way I can effectively communicate with them. So we start to realize again, AI is going to change the way we talk, we communicate, we curate, we engage. It's very uncomfortable because it's a new way of thinking, right? But once you start to open up your mind, it's just amazing. You'll see, literally in my training, I can be on calls with large groups and I can literally see people have an aha moment and you can just see the smile and the click and they're like, oh, can I talk, what about this and this? And then their brain just goes into the infinite possibilities that AI opens up to us, right? And that's the most rewarding thing. So yeah, so for data, I hope that answers your question of kind of thinking about new data sources, new ways to segment, new ways to contextualize. Another good fun data source, by the way, is sitemaps now. I grab competitors' sitemaps, my sitemaps. I do comparisons. I can grab ad sets. You name it. There's so much more data out there that we can grab.
Yeah, I think like on that note, like John, also like we should talk about like GPT engine optimization or like GEO. I think there are multiple terms for this right now, and like people actually use different terms. So, but like I think like one idea that I had like many years ago, like when we were trying to optimize for SEO or whatnot, as long as we create like content that has true value to my audience, right? No matter the technology, no matter what happens in the world, like we will always stand out. So that was the philosophy I had probably like 7-8 years ago, and we stuck true to it. We like created like content that was like very core to our audience and what they needed. Podcast, like blogs, like webinars and everything, right? And then what happened is that like AI came in. We thought we will be like out the game altogether. But then given that we had this like rich content, and then like ChatGPT is actually using Bing as search. Our content was already like parsed well on Bing, meaning we're already on ChatGPT. We again came up on top, even with AI, right? So John, like what would be your advice on optimizing for GPTs nowadays beyond SEO?
I'll give a very contrarian answer because there's a lot of agencies who are using GEO, AIS overviews. They'll talk to you about RAGs and inference technologies and all this terminology to convince you to buy new services from them. There's also new tools to share with you. How's your brand being searched and shared on ChatGPT and all that stuff? And I'm telling, it's not needed. Okay, let's break down into some very simple things that's happened. One is you made a very important fact and statement. Good content is always going to outdo good content. Yes, there are ways right now to manipulate the search engines and manipulate ChatGPT to get some results. It's just like what we did with SEO 20 years ago. A little extra keyword stuff and a little extra off-site stuff. You can definitely do it. What's changed in the last 6 months is, and Google calls this grounding the truth. You'll notice that every time you do a ChatGPT or a search in Copilot, there's something called web and work, right? It's this idea of where you're going to pull your query from. And what I'm trying to say by that is they quickly recognized that LMs trained by themselves without web search, like you said, are older. They're not updated to the latest data, and they also struggle with timeline series of information. So a very simple example of, I had this client that said, we're the 800-pound gorilla in an industry. We've been around for 12 years, and 2 years ago, we rebranded. And then you went to ChatGPT and asked who are the top 10 vendors in their category. Their old brand came out on the top almost every time. And so you can see very quickly that, co-citation and the idea of using the frequency of how many times you were talked about is a strong way that the ChatGPT gave its responses, right? And it reminds me of SEO. It used to keyword stuff and used to get up, right? So that's kind of where we're at. The fix, it was very quick for them. They take what you just said. When they ask a query, what's happened behind the scenes is they're going to go and grab the latest search results on top of that thing, bring in that data set, plus what I call it the brain, the LM brain, the ChatGPT brain, come together and give you an answer. So they're using search today to help ground the truth to the results, to make sure stuff that's timely, changing, whatever, gets much easier to respond. So then you say, okay, if they're doing that, then how's that work? How does that happen? Everything we did with SEO today still stands. So if you look at Perplexity, you look at Google, you look at ChatGPT, what they're doing behind the scenes is they take your prompt, just like they used to do in search. So, we're based in Ottawa. So if I asked Google today, what is the weather, right? Does it just take what are the weather and put in the AI model and come back and answer? No, it knows that John is located in Ottawa, right? So it will add Ottawa as part of it, go get the weather for Ottawa, come back and share with me. Same thing's happening with prompt. You prompt something, the AI is taking that prompt, breaking it up, trying to understand the context, goes out, grabs some files from the internet, right? So usually the top 10, top 20, pulls that out into what's called a micro rag, so a very simple data set. Inference happens on top, so it quickly reads it. And then the big brain, what we call ChatGPT, analyzes that and gives you a result. So there is no new. It's simply a reminder that if I asked Farhad, what are the top 10 associations for X? You would go to Google and look up link number 1 and read, and then maybe that was not good enough, so you look at number 2 and you'd read, and if that wasn't good enough, you go to 3, and then you summarize the results and say, here, John, here's my summary. AI is doing the exact same thing. It just happens to do it very quickly, and it can have a lot more context to it. And so I love what your statement is. Keep focusing on high-value content. Number 2, start thinking about publishing new content, new data, new sources that no one has, survey results, industries, quotes. AI can't make that stuff up, right? It needs to find those things. So the types of blog articles and things you write are going to shift over the next 6 to 9 months. The hardest thing today, is going to be if I'm a brand new brand and I want to play in this game, I have to do twice as much work to get listed. I have to do a lot more work for a lot less results because I'm in there today at the top 10. I get a very small window now of my brand and maybe a click through now. So the number of clicks we're going to get is going to go way down, right? Very much you're going to see it. So most people's websites are now losing between 10 to 30%. And the more your content is around, what is, or very high level hows, and not something new, that content's getting rewritten by AI over. You still get displayed as a source, but how many people click on sources? So as a new player, you're going to do a lot of extra work to get it to a source and almost see no traffic. So that's the unfortunate part for the next couple cycles of this. It might change, but that's where we are today. But you're absolutely right, Farhad. Like, good content always wins. SEO best practices are still the same. So as everyone says, SEO is dead, right? Still exists. It's just changing. You're just not going to get as much performance out of it, right? I think you're going to see new ad styles coming out of it. I think you're going to start to see something, what I call more interruptive ad styles. So I foresee an example of, I go to Google and I'm using a lot of Google now to provide a lot of AI overview stuff. It may want to put up an ad in front of me before I'm allowed to do more because it's giving me so much value, right? Just like I get interrupted in TV, right? Before you're allowed to watch your series more. Yeah. I think we're going to find new ad formats. I think there might be an ad format too where I can submit an approved page that meets the top 10 page standard that I get included in the overview so my brand shows up next to them. Or I get to be displayed on top of the data sources as a related topic that I'm approved. So I think to your point, Bruce, about, I won't be able just to put an ad in. I think there's going to be a higher level expectation for you to put an ad. And that's not a new novel concept. If you look back at Google advertisement a long time ago, they've always said they would rather put up an ad that's more relevant and more performing on success than the dollars. Their algorithm has always been biased towards better results than dollars. With AI, I think that thinking is going to be accelerated. As long as you're doing more value, I'm more than happy to share that with the audience members, right? So
I was going to start with saying, yeah, I agree. Content is king. And when we look for good content, a great source of content in a lot of professions and trades are the corporate partners. They have educational white papers, they have videos, a wealth of data. They're often projecting years ahead and can tell what members are buying, what their preferences are. And then also based on what you just said, that affinity that many companies would rather be associated with good content in front of members than another banner ad or another shout out from the podium. So have you worked with associations or thought about how, as associations are embracing these great new initiatives around AI, how do they involve their corporate partners, both as partners in building that for members and for this wealth of content that members are accessing all the time? I've talked to associations that are very proud that 200 of their members go to their webinars, and the corporate partners say, yeah, we get 2,000 people at our webinars. So great audience. In some cases, the online communities that the corporate partners have are greater than the associations. How can AI help bring all this together?
yeah, so there's a couple of layers there. Let's start off with metrics because I heard your numbers, 200 versus 1,000 or whatever, right? So human attention is getting harder and harder to grasp, right? I'm going to assume that yes, I get 1,000 people of low intent on a large webinar versus maybe 100 people of curated, actionable people in a community, right? So I don't look at, and I think as marketers we got to get better at understanding. Especially in an AI world, volume's not the place, right? White paper creation, as an example, is going to be very much changed in the next little while. We're going to find that I can write a white paper on any topic within literally 30 minutes using ChatGPT deep research. Now, that's good and bad. So what I mean by that is there's been a lot of people who've written white papers where they have not gone down very deeply. They do not have a contrarian view. They have nothing unique. But all they did was had the time to curate a quick white paper. So again, I'm going to challenge all of us to say, what have you curated? What have you created that is different? I gave in a very strong opinion today that's very different than if you asked AI about AI overviews and stuff. And here's the truth of what's going to happen. If you go to AI and start asking about AI and geo, it's going to start to pick up all of the data on the average information about all of these vendors telling you that geo's the name of the game. You've got to change your SEO strategy and all that stuff, right? Because that's where this industry is trying to push people. So AI is does AI understand how to look at that data differently, challenge it? You can ask it for sure, but it doesn't have that intuition and that deep experience. It's going to take all of these blog posts on Reddit that says SEO's dead, geo's the next thing. You got to track your brand in geo. And if you don't do that today, you're going to be dead in 18 months. And you're going to see 1,000 comments on that. And AI picks that up as if that's the truth, right? So again, I think on content, Bruce, we have to get a lot more comfortable having this conversation of who are my experts? Who has deep knowledge? What extra opinions on it? If we do a white paper, can we write both sides of the thing now? So, John has an opinion. Please, someone write the opposite. Because I'm not saying I have the right opinion. I say I have an opinion. For us to learn, I too want to be challenged. I too want to hear something different, right? I find it's the same thing in politics right now. We don't seem to want to have a debate. It's either you're for me or you're against me. I would love to see more white papers, more media, more sources, more community saying there is no right way. Let's talk about different opinions and figure out what works for Bruce. What works for Bruce and his team and his members is very different than Farhad. And it works for John, right? We keep thinking AI has the answer. No, it can give you an answer, but that answer might not always be right, you know? If I think back to Farhad, when he went to the startup support services, and you have 3 executive members coaching you, how often are they aligned? Not frequently. So Farhad had to make a choice. Do I listen to Bruce, to John, or I'll make up some fictitious person, Mike, right? Same idea. We keep treating AI as if it's this like factual, perfect thing. It is designed to always give you a response. It will happily answer to you. It will surround it with happy notes and happy coaching for you to engage and keep using. It's designed just like a social media network. It wants you to draw you in and keep using it. It purposely gives you ideas of extra prompts. Oh, would you like this? How about a little bit of that? You know, it's almost like a buffet. Hey, I gave you a little plate. Would you like a little bit more with that? Would you like to try this? You know, they're trying to make you keep eating. Why? Because they're in the war right now of trying to get your attention onto their platform and make it the most sticky. The AI companies know very clearly we're in changing human behaviors. Once you adopt a human behavior, it's very challenged to unchange it. So they really want you to make, for example, if you look at GPTs, OpenAI really wants you to make all their GPTs, because even though I can recreate them in gems, or I can recreate them in agents and Copilot, they really want to make sure that every day I go to them first and create that habit, right? And so you're going to find some very interesting challenges over the next little while, that what we read and what we see, I think, are going to be 2 different things. They're biased. They want to give you the data that helps supports their use case.
Got it. Yeah. So John, like on that note of like personalization, right? So I think like you mentioned that like we should kind of like go deeper into like not personal, maybe more into psychographics of individual segments, and then like go deeper there. Now, associations will typically send out newsletters. Maybe some will send 1 per week, some will send like maybe like 1 per month, right? So are you saying that like we should kind of like segment the newsletters further? So maybe like 3-4 newsletters for like different segments, and then so I have this core concept, but then like run them through AI to kind of like create like segmented versions of them. Is that what you're like saying?
That's exactly where it's going to go. Absolutely. Right. And then eventually the idea of a newsletter, I think, is going to be an old concept.
Right. Because what we are doing right now, so Member Launch actually our platform has a weekly digest that goes out to like all the members. But I think like one challenge we have is that like that newsletter is not like AI curated yet, right? So one idea that I have is that, you know what, like if I know about the person who's going to get this email, can I like pull his data and give him some summary or something from the week, you know, that he may be interested in? So we are not there yet, but I think this is the next thing that we are trying on our end.
Yep, and I'll take it a step further. So imagine I give you a curation. It's a lot of newsletters, and I'm a big believer in newsletters, and I'm a big believer in, you know, newsletters are a great source for curation. So like you look at like AI newsletters, they'll give me the latest news, they'll give me some links to things. Where the most natural place next will be is, thanks for the links, but what's your opinion on them? Because what's unique is going to be the opinion, not the source. So again, AI is going to help us source and segment and do that all stuff faster. Right? So that's where we're going to get it to probably in 18 months. Then once you kind of get that comfortable, you're saying, where does AI take us next? Well, what's unique is my view on those things. Right?
That is really important, John. So now we've gone from a ton of data that's available, or information and content, to curated. And maybe just if I can take your point 1 step further, not just my opinion, but here are 3 opinions.
Oh, even better.
Folks.
Absolutely.
Here's an industry perspective and a member perspective, or a perspective from a large member and a small member organization, or whatever it is. I think that's a great way to get beyond just this wealth of data and even the subset of curated. But what do people think about it? What's important? What do we need to know?
Yeah. So I really think the more and more you think about the future, chat is going to be chat or voice or whatever you want to use, but it's going to be NLP, so natural language programming or processing, right? That we're going to talk to things, or we're going to write things. So that's very natural. And you just think about then I'm going to put that experience that is also multimodal. So that means I can share back to you with a video, text, voice. I can create a little app. So you can start to see and you're going to see this in search too. That we're going to interact with the content more in a way that the interaction is the value, and the question is then what can you put into that content to drive the interactions that's different.
Right. So John, so this is interesting. So Member Lounge, asks the people registered today to submit a question. There's a question submitted in quotation marks because she said, I asked ChatGPT for a question for this webinar.
Awesome.
So her question is, as AI floods our feeds with content, is human connection the only thing left that's truly real?
Ooh, truly real. That's a very loaded word. It's funny when I go to conferences about AI, it's fascinating how I've gone to 6 of them in the last 6 months, and it's the first time in my career when you meet people, you start to have discussions about like what is humanity, and you start to kind of have this like higher level of like purpose discussion, which I've never had at an event ever. And so my first thinking is we're meeting digitally right now. Is this human connection or not? Right. So that's my first thing. The second thing is, I think we're going to see a lot more people using AI in ways that they can't afford and stuff. So what I mean by that is, if you're going through something challenging, there'll be chatbots you can talk to that can do an extremely empathetic way to help you coach you through something. And I'd almost challenge some people, and it's going to scare them to hear this, but AI can be trained better to pick up my nuances, my voice, my eye contact, my history to deal with a challenge. The challenge with AI is going to be which angle or technique should it choose to deploy to get to that technique. So there's going to be some training of it. So I do think you're going to see an increase in us leveraging and using AI for sure. That I think is going to happen. But I put on my parent hat, and I call this skinny tie, fat tie. We go through trends. And so what I mean by that, bell bottoms are back, or like we have spent the last decade or two finding ourselves being more. I can connect with people more worldwide. I can get more information more easily. I can do a lot of things digitally. I do think that our young next generation is going to disconnect like we've never seen before from mobile devices and stuff. Like you can already see some of the younger generations are saying, I'm giving up on doing online dating. I want to meet and do speed dating. I want to meet a group of people because I'm tired of the filters. I'm tired of the fake answers. I want to have a real relationship with a real person, right? So I do think there's going to be this balance. Now, does everybody go one way or the other? I don't think so. And like in any cycle, does everybody wear a skinny tie when fat ties are asked? No, there's still some people that want to trend or do the difference, right? So I don't think it's an all or end, but I definitely do see a pattern, and my gut says it's my kids or the next generation below them. So I've got a 17, a 14, and a 12-year-old. I get a sneaky suspicion that eventually they're going to get oversaturated with everything, not knowing what's true online, right? Like I can predict the next elections for every country is going to be very different with the rules and stuff because of all the AI generated content.
And John, I think you're absolutely right. I think I don't think it'll be like several generations like away from now. It's even happening now because like there's a comeback of like dumb phones. I don't know if you saw that dumb
Yes,
phones that
they're
actually
coming
don't
back.
have internet. They're coming back. Dumb phones are coming back because they don't send you notifications and all that, right? So flip phones are coming back. So yeah, and I'm not that young anymore, but I guess like I have disconnected already. I have like device free time, like lots of device free time during my day, so I can actually keep my calm in general.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
On
So,
that note, John, there's another wonderful question from
yeah.
from the audience. So I'll paste it on chat here. So it's from Scott Grams. Scott is asking, AI seems to be proficient in producing lots of content, but on the receiving side, we're also being overloaded, right? So how do we get better in like consuming content, on the receiving side?
Yeah, so it's super fun. So I always use this case. So I was working on a startup, and we were trying to help with micro learning. And I noticed this pattern. We often share data internally and be like, you'll see it, like Farhad will send me something like, check out this cool article on AI, right? What's fascinating is we don't often, as humans, add context. So you send me an article, you tell me it's good, you see something, and we don't add context. So what I find fascinating is that with content creation, and this is kind of goes back to curation and stuff, is when you give me an article and it talks about three things, do you agree with all three things, or is there one of them that really resonated with you, right? Why didn't you share that with me? Why don't we talk about that one instead of just here's the article, right? So you're gonna find as we share more and more content, you already see it. There's a little SEO hack right now, by the way, where you put TLDR on top of your longer blogs and use AI to summarize it to try to just upgrade it and give it fresh new content. So again, humans, we do like shortcuts. We don't want to read. But what I'm going to find interesting is that this might change. So I'm a big believer in what's called Socratic teaching. So the idea is you talk, you debate, and stuff like that. And I feel like universities are going to go back to Socratic teaching because I can get the content very quickly. What I don't have and what we're not going to have as a society very good is the discussion and context and the debate around, is this the right content? Is this good content? Like if you think about this, like I'll take a book behind me. You got a bookshelf behind you too, right? And any of those books behind you, let's say it has the 5 steps to blah, blah, blah. Do you agree on all 5 steps? Or you like steps 1 and 3 and, step 2 doesn't work for me, right? Well, let's talk about why step 3 doesn't work for you. And then let's double down on why 1 and 2 is interesting to you and what I can learn from your takeaway on those 2 steps out of the 5, right? So yes, it's so easy now to recreate content and spin up versions and spin tacks of my competitors and create variations and all that stuff, right? You're going to have to spend more time now on bringing that into curation and context and discussion. And we're going to quickly go away from volume to quality, to back to your statement, right? I don't need 50 links on AI newsletters. Can you just share with me, John, your 2 or 3 biggest takeaways this week? Because there's with more noise, what's the first thing you need when you get more noise? You have them on your head, right? Filtering. First thing is you need more filters. So the more noise there is, the more filters you're going to have to create for people. Right. And so I could just naturally see it's going to go up and up and up and up. How do I get better and better and better? Because there's going to be too much noise.
Got it. Yeah. All right. So I think like, John, you just like briefly touched on this next question that I'm going to ask is from like Carl White. I'll paste it on chat as well here.
Yeah.
So Carl is asking,
keep them coming.
Yeah. So the question is that how do you see like our education and learning changing over time? You talk about the Socratic method, tell us a bit more about that. Maybe we can use it in applications as well.
This one's I'm very passionate about, and I worked for an AI tutoring marketplace company for a while. If we can get administrators and unions and all these unfortunate people out of the way who keep saying no to everything, we can create the world's greatest education system. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a soapbox here because it's education and healthcare. I actually believe third world countries are going to get more advanced than us in North America on education and healthcare. And here's the reason why. When you have nothing, you're willing to say yes. When we have something, we protect, we stop, we stall, we give every excuse why we can't do this. Here's what should happen with let's take math and tutoring. So today, our classrooms are full of 40, 50 kids. The teacher can barely keep up with the needs of the kids. You got kids who want to go further ahead. You got kids who are further behind. And the teacher is just stressed out trying to deal with all these children, right? It's impossible. What if I told you that if we allowed more AI into the room, that the kids who want to do more can quietly sit there and keep going further because they've got somebody guiding them through AI and tutoring, right? Now let's talk about the kid that's struggling. How good are our teachers? They're tired. They're great teachers. We got great teachers, but they're tired, right? They're burnt out. They're dealing with more parent inquiries than we've ever had before. They're struggling. Well, AI can also help the kids at the bottom of the class. So I use this example every time. I have a daughter who loves riding, and I have a son who loves basketball. So if every time I'm doing a math tutoring session on a subject. Imagine the tutor uses examples for basketball and angles and geometry of the plays and all that stuff. How engaged is that kid? Super engaged, and AI can do this instantly. Now, my daughter loves horseback riding, so let's talk about the angles of the horse jumping over it, the height of the jump. Right now, I'm teaching her angles, so I've got angles being taught at the basketball level, and I've got angles being taught at the horse jumping levels. I can't imagine a kid who would not be sitting there going, "Well, tell me more, and what happens if my horse does this?" and start getting excited about the data. AI tutoring and anything is going to happen. So what I'd also love to see then is, because we have all these resources on tutoring and training and coaching, and you've got a kid with, ADHD, you're going to have a tutor, an AI tutor that helps them on calming them down, playing some tunes, ask them questions. I can just see this proliferating. And then what I'd love to see at the start of every day is Socratic teaching. Every day you start up, you have the students come along and you ask them a thought-provoking question. And we teach very early on that it's not about being told what's right or wrong. It's about inquiring, learning, discovering. And as soon as we make the education system back away from being, there's this and that, and you're really about ask more questions, inquire more, let's challenge that thinking, our population is going to drastically change for the better. If you really look at some of these videos, we talk about education as if it's a manufacturing plant, and we drive into them something. There's a very fun research study that talks about the paperclip. If you've ever seen this, look it up. I forget his name, but when children are young, so you give a 5-year-old a paperclip and you ask them, what can you do with a paperclip? They'll come up with 1,000 creative ideas with a paperclip. You ask a 16-year-old what a paperclip is for? What do they say? It's to hold the paper.
Papers,
the creativity has been destroyed out of them because of our school system.
Got it. I want to share like a funny anecdote
Thanks.
here.
Who asked that question, Carl? Thanks for putting me on my soapbox, Carl.
I have to share like this personal story like very, very quickly. I'll be really quick. So like I'm originally from Bangladesh. So like when I actually travel, like I get interactions with like some doctors in Bangladesh as well. And what I've found is that like the doctors in Bangladesh, they are like very much like open to experimenting on their patients, unlike the doctors in Canada. As a result, they learn more quicker, and they're doing more in general as well, because they're really experimenting on their patients because they have nothing to lose in general. So I found that very funny.
Well, there's another study that shows that you use AI for medical, AI with doctors for medical, and just doctors, right? And you ask the question of which one performs the best. So what's fascinating is the AI for doctors. You think AI and doctors would do better? Turns out because of our training, we've told doctors in the way that it's like, here's the answer. Right. And lots of things, we're learning new things. That if you think about a doctor, my father was a doctor. When he went to school, let's just make a joke, the textbook was this big, right? And if you go to a doctor now, the textbook's like this big because the amount of knowledge has changed. But what's fascinating is that doctors and AI, the doctors kept trying to push the AI to their thinking instead of using AI as a collaboration to explore more opportunities and ideas to get a better result. That is a fundamental, profound takeaway for everybody to realize that I'm not saying AI is the answer. I'm saying you use AI to try to get to better answers. It might be still your answer, but you're using AI to think about the problem, ask him more questions. Well, what about if we added this type of issue with the patient or this extra background? Oh, if that's the case, have you considered this? The way we engage with AI is not like AI has the answer. I'm trying to leverage this technology as a sidekick. The reason it's called Copilot is because it wants to work with you and help you, right? But the Copilot next to you is, you're still the captain, you're directing the ship, but you're asking for questions. You're asking for, hey, is my landing gear down? Hey, what's the headwind? How are we doing on fuel, right? You're working with this entity for a better outcome. That's how we have to treat AI. We really have to treat it as, I often use it as the expression of a co-op student. We all have access to a co-op student. They're getting smarter every day. How do you talk to them, interact with them, give them instructions to get the best out of them? That's how I love to use AI.
That's wonderful. So we're coming up on time. So we'll take the last question from the audience submitted questions for now. And by the way, if anyone like joining live has any question, please submit them on chat and we'll get to them right away. So Jamila, hi Jamila, I don't know if you're here. So Jamila is asking, I'm interested in learning about like gauging the needs of the community for content. So like how to identify what content to create, what does the community need?
Yeah, great question. So again, I'm a big believer in surveys and engagement and stuff like that. But here's a few kind of fun tips and tricks. So I'll give a very simple example around sitemaps again. So if you've never gone to a website, and this is a little bit above your understanding, but you can go to any website. So memberlounge dot, I think you're .com, am I right?
.app. Yeah.
.app, okay, .app
Yeah.
/ robots.txt, and it will guide you to where their sitemap is. And you can download that sitemap. So I can take a sitemap of Farhad's company, and then I can say, hey, Bruce, I'm going to go to your community and take a download your sitemap. And I'm going to simply ask AI, say, between these two sitemaps, what topics have not been covered? And do a little keyword guess, right? Or I can say, what topics have been covered the most? Or I can do that with my partner's data. So you can start to, again, grab these new data sources and do stuff about things. So I'm a big fan of using Gemini to do keyword research. I don't believe, even though it will tell you when you do search that, I don't believe it has actual data yet directly out of Google Search Console or Google Analytics, but it understands keywords and it does a lot of stuff. So I can ask it all kinds about keywords and intent and do some brainstorming. I also love using other data sources around like industry terms or newsletters. So go grab some of your favorite data. So again, you think of my brain as it goes to data. Go grab your top 5 industry newsletters, put those newsletters into ChatGPT and ask, well, how do I do that? A very simple hack is anytime you are struggling getting data into a prompt, simply go to File, Print, PDF, and upload the PDF. A PDF is treated just like a text file. You can do this for ad sets and review sites and all kinds of stuff. Quickly grab the data and play with it. What they talk a lot about. What is a trend? You can go to Reddit and ask it. So Perplexity has access to Reddit. You're going to go ask it, hey, what are some Reddit groups? What are some frequently topics? Okay, those are great ideas for stuff like that, right? Or what's a hot topic? Or what's a topic that is causing more discussion, right? There's so many new ways now to think about where to get these little micro data sets to drive your content strategy. And then I often see one around content strategy I'm a big believer in thematic themes. So when I do content, what I really like to do is work with AI to say, can we come up with themes? I don't know, depending on how big your team is, but let's just say monthly. I want to come up with 12 monthly themes. And then whatever that theme is, I'm going to use AI, these data sources to dig down into that theme. So if I know in my industry that, we talk a lot about the government at this stage, or there's usually some very natural themes that fill up your theme calendar. So you start with those and then you supplement them with other ones. So I hope that answers your question, but I'll just throw it out there. My full name is Jonathan Milne. So if you want to look up me on LinkedIn, I think you actually put my name fully on or no, but the full name is Jonathan. Sure. Look me on LinkedIn. I always love to answer questions and follow-ups and give people as much free advice as I can give out. So feel free to interact with me. So I think you said it was Jamila, if you have more questions or you want to see more examples, feel free to reach out. Love to speak more about this.
You know what, on that note, John, how can people reach out to you? Like, do you want to share your email address or anything on chat here?
Yeah, sure. So my email address, I'll share my work one on chat here. Yeah. So LinkedIn and email, feel free to reach out. As you can tell, I love the topic. I'm passionate about the space. I think the fun thing to think about is I'm a big believer that I learn from everybody. And I find every question, every insight, I'm learning from groups just as much as you're learning from me. I think AI is moving so quickly. There are no gurus. There are no experts. They're just people who are willing to share what they're learning. And that goes right back to Socratic teaching. Just sharing the things I've seen. They may work for you, they may not. They may work this month, they may not work next month. But as long as we keep sharing and communicating and supporting each other, we'll figure out a way to make this an actual impact on good, right? So I don't know if you remember, Farhad, I do have this little group called the AI for Good Forum. I unfortunately don't have as much time as
I didn't know about that.
Wish, but I'm trying to create a community where the inspiration is how do we get more people to use AI for good, to develop our careers. I think we are in a beautiful chance to recreate our next careers that are currently not defined. I think we get to create these new career titles and these new career opportunities. I think we're going to go away from a little bit of this, I filled in the social media manager role. I filled in the content specialist. I filled in the SEO. I think we get to create a new future, and that excites me. So if anybody wants to have those types of discussions, please do reach out.
That's a great summary and very inspirational takeaway as well, John. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it.
I loved it. Thank you so much, Farhad and Bruce. I really enjoyed it, and I can't believe how
Thanks,
fast
John. A lot of good
time
insights.
went by. It's amazing.
Time went by. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce, do you have any last takeaways you want to share?
Oh, this was great. If I had known what you were going to say at the beginning, I would have said that this is applicable whether an association has 100 members or 100,000. That this is all about member value. It is about creating connection, identifying those member needs, whether you know them, whether you need to do a survey, whether you sit down with your database. And even some of those takeaways about not only, if Farhad has that book on the 5 best ways to do this, do those 5 ways apply to a member with 10 employees or a member with 100 employees? Maybe it's different. And with AI, we could now give different articles to those 2 members. And whether that's in-person connection or just a member getting that email and saying, oh, they know who I am. They're talking to me. This is my association. That's huge.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I guess like my key takeaway, like John, like for myself personally, for my own use is that like go deeper into custom GPTs, like you mentioned. I'm already using it, but I'll go way deeper and maybe like create cross connections between custom GPTs now, to kind of like get like better insights on what can you do together. All right. Okay, so once again, like John and Bruce, thank you so much for being with us today. So, and for everyone who's watching us, thank you so much for being with us right before the Easter weekend. I know you want to go after the holidays, but then yeah, you are here with us watching us, so that's amazing. So once again, I'm Farhad Khan, CEO of Member Lounge, and like this is the Member Lounge podcast. We hold our podcast episodes every month, and we do webinars every month as well. If you want to like join our future episodes, always like you can find us at memberlounge.app. That is memberlounge, all one word, .app. And with that, we will wrap up for today. We wish you all the best in your membership and AI journey. Bye for now.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.